Welcome to Stop Paying Capital Gains Now, where guests will share their experiences in saving money easily with this spendthrift trust. The real name for the trust is Irrevocable, Complex, Discretionary, Non-Grantor Spendthrift Trust. Capital gains are currently 23.8% on any profits, be it a crypto investor, crypto miner, real estate investor, day trader, forex, stock market trader. Your guest is Sally Gimon, and I want to make sure that you can learn how to save money easily. Hi, this is Sally Gimon, the owner of thetrustisyou.com, and this is my new podcast, Stop Paying Capital Gains Now. I'm very pleased to have Gabe, I'm going to mess up your last name, Sztvorecz. How do I say it correctly?
It's good enough. Yep, it's good.
He had invited me to be on his podcast, The Money Pod Secret, and he's a real estate investor, and I invited him to be on this podcast because, unfortunately, capital gains affects real estate investors both short-term at 23.8% currently, could go up to 40% for some tax brackets. There is past legislation. And then for long-term capital gains, it could either be 15% or 20%, depending on what kind of business you have. So, Gabe, I appreciate you coming onto my show. How are you doing this today?
Sally, great to be on the show. Thanks for inviting me. I'm doing great.
Excellent. I know you're a real estate investor. I know you're in California. First off, with the crazy weather, how y'all doing out there?
Yeah, thanks for asking. Well, there's been quite a bit of flooding in the area. We've had heavy rains now for about 2 or 3 weeks, which is, this is the rainy season. Right now, it's about mid-January as we record this podcast. So we do get rains in January, but not like this. So it's been really heavy. Thank goodness where I live in the town of San Ramon, California, we've been spared. So we're a little bit up in the hills. We're not in the low-lying areas. And so we haven't seen flooding here. But we did have a lot of heavy winds and hard rain. But so far, we've escaped the worst of it.
Excellent. And now I know you're doing a lot of investing in Midwest, mostly in Ohio. Is that correct?
So right now, I'm in Pennsylvania and Wisconsin.
Okay.
And yes, we are investing, not as much as I'd like to, but definitely always have one or two, pokers in the fire, as they say.
Excellent. If you don't mind my asking, what got you involved? What is your why? Why invest real estate investing?
That's a great question. So, as an immigrant coming to America about 7 years ago, the official mantra really doesn't make sense for a lot of immigrants, right? Because people never question the normal. Like wherever you grow up, that society, those norms, that's the normal. And people just grow up thinking, okay, well, this is how the world works around me. This just must be how it works everywhere. It must be normal. And coming to America in my mid-30s, I was quite surprised at the mantra here, which is just get a job, work like crazy, put it in this mysterious vehicle called a 401k, and don't worry, everything's going to be taken care of. And every single statistic on the subject clearly points to the fact that it's not working. It's not working for the majority of Americans. It's a system that really has a lot of restrictions and it's not very flexible, and it serves a purpose, but I don't think that purpose is meant to really help and maximize the quality of life and the freedom of the average American. I think it works well to keep people out of poverty somewhat. Maybe so the government has less of a financial burden to take care of seniors in poverty or whatever else may be. Or I think it's a great vehicle to enrich the Wall Street financial class, which are probably the group that's benefiting the most from the whole 401k. I hate to use the word scheme, but scheme. And so I realized quite early on that the whole 401k thing doesn't work. So if the 401k thing doesn't work, then what's next, right? And I think all evidence points to the fact that real estate is probably the easiest way to achieve financial freedom for most people. Some people get rich with Bitcoin. Some people get, rich with stocks, or, somebody was going to inherit a multi-million-dollar family estate. Congrats to those individuals. Good for you. But in terms of the majority of Americans who have gotten into the millionaire status or who have achieved financial independence, real estate is the number one vehicle that they've used. And so, it makes sense to me. I think real estate is something that a lot of people can understand. It's not as complicated as, second level derivatives, in the futures exchange. Real estate is something everyone has some kind of exposure to. We all live in houses. We all rent apartments. We all have an understanding of what happens when your toilet gets plugged. And so the idea of owning a house is not as scary or as alien as say owning $100,000 futures contract in oil or something, right? So
Excellent. First off, I didn't know you were an immigrant. Where's home for you?
yeah, thanks for asking. Yeah, so that crazy name that I have, and I think you did a good job, by the way. It trips up everybody. It's Eastern European, so I was born in Hungary. I lived there till I was about 10, and then I grew up in Canada because the whole family moved to Canada. And then in my mid 30s, I got a great job opportunity to come to America, and I jumped on it, and so here I am.
Excellent. Do you travel on 3 different passports or?
Um, I have 3 different passports, but no, actually that's not true. Not I only have 2 at the moment, but I mainly travel in the Canadian one.
Okay. My mom was from Ireland, and I don't know if this is way back when I was in junior high school. There was a Pan Am situation where an American was killed, unfortunately. My mom took 2 buses down to Washington, D.C., Irish Embassy to get us all Irish passports because we did travel quite a bit internationally. So it's people ask me all the time because I say some things weird from my mom being Irish. So, well, welcome to the United States. Where in Canada did you grow up?
So I grew up in southwestern Ontario, right across the river from Detroit, Michigan, in a small town called Windsor, Ontario.
That's not a small town. I know where that is. Okay.
It's funny
Hey,
because in that Journey song, when they talk about South Detroit, South Detroit, there is no such thing as South Detroit if you ever look at a map. And so that's the joke in Windsor, Ontario, is that Windsor, Ontario is South Detroit if you ever look at a map.
well, that's people think it's funny that Windsor, Ontario is south of Detroit. Detroit is further north and everything. So exactly. Now, are you? I know from being on your podcast, you're doing some things on your own, and then you also have a business partner. How did you and your business partner meet to start investing in houses? Because I know a lot of people who are very nervous about investing with other people.
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think it can work both ways, right? Some people just are just really good at making decisions on by themselves and taking that first step. And some people can be stubborn and they don't like to work with others. But if you can get a partner, because I think 2 heads are better than one. It's probably easier to overcome some of the more difficult moments in any kind of business or any kind of trouble that may come down the line. But basically, my business partner is somebody that I've known since I was 20. He's also from southwestern Ontario. He ended up moving to America and became a doctor, and he's a doctor in Wausau, Wisconsin. And that's where we started buying our properties together in Wausau. And he's a doctor, so he has a great job with a great salary. He has a lot of money to invest. I guess in terms of strengths, where I have maybe some strengths that he doesn't, and vice versa. He's very good at making a decision. He's very good at saying, this is the problem we have. Here are the 3 different options. Let's go with this one. Whereas I tend to hesitate and I tend to overthink things. So he's very good at making decisions. And I support him on things like the number crunching because I have an engineering background and a business background. So I'm more comfortable with the numbers, the projections, the financial models, talking to the bank, getting the loans. And so I'm more on the numbers side and he's more on the execution side.
Excellent. And if I remember correctly, you have 2 houses on your own, and then you're in 2 houses with him. Is that correct? You've got 4
That's
properties.
correct. That's
Excellent.
correct. Yeah.
And are you in the real estate group, or are you doing this just the 2 of you all on your own at this point?
So right now it's only the 2 of us, but we are actively trying to raise money for our first deal. So we're at the stage where we are approaching colleagues and friends and say, hey, look, we got some really good opportunities in Wausau, Wisconsin right now. How would you like to invest with us? So we're working on our first, I guess, syndication deal, you could say. We're working on the first one right now.
Congratulations. For me, it was my cousin's husband. I guess he's my cousin. We were in Sitka, Alaska, and I was moving the car, and a call happened to come in on the General Motors phone thing. And I'm like, oh, I'll talk to you on Monday. And my cousin, Scott, was just retiring, and he's just like, I've got some retirement, like you were talking about the 401k, and he's like, it's not enough. How do I get involved with real estate? And I don't know if you know this, but the gentleman who went in front of Congress to talk about 401ks in the United States, he does not have a 401k. He's all into infinite banking right now because he doesn't think how 401ks were set up. It was supposed to be your pension and your 401k, and all the companies took the pension away. So it's a very scary scenario. And one of the things I'm very passionate about, 40% of working women in the United States don't even have access to a 401k, let alone participating in a 401k. They say 80% of Americans are not even putting money into their 401ks. That is a scary scenario. in your perfect world, what would you like to be investing in? Do you want to stay with single family homes? Do you want to get involved with multifamily homes? Do you want to be in a REIT? What would you like to be doing?
Yeah, great question. My long-term goal is to get into multifamily. I think the really good opportunities are in multifamily, and that's why you see so many of the professional investors get into it. It is quite cost prohibitive. So I think with a single family, really anybody can get into it. I mean, if somebody has $20,000, $30,000 of cash, that's enough to get into a single family, right? There are many, many places in the Midwest where someone can buy a house that costs $80,000, maybe $100,000. They put a $20,000 down payment. They fix up this and that for about $5,000, and they still have a little bit of money left over in reserve. The property will likely cash flow if you chose well, and it's very easy to get into single family. I think the real opportunity, and this is where I want to get long term, is in the multifamily space, where you start to get into, say, 16 or 32 or 40 units, like a big apartment complex that you buy for $2 million, where same thing, you get a commercial loan, you finance it, you put down 20%, which now you're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars. But if you can make repairs, you can upgrade the property, you can increase rent. It's quite possible to increase the value of that property by $1 million in a span of a few years. And when you are using leverage, right, which is what you're doing, you're using the bank's money for leverage. So you put in, say, $400,000 into a $2 million property. If you can increase that property from $2 million to $3 million, all of a sudden your $400,000 down payment is now worth $1.4 million. I mean, these are very rough numbers, but the ability to scale money and to have high returns on multifamily is incredible. But you do need a lot of money, which is why it's much easier to do it with a group or with syndication, because it's very unlikely that I'm going to just save up $400,000 and plop it down on a single investment.
5 years, 6 years, yeah.
Yeah, and even if I would have $400,000 in the bank tomorrow, I don't know if I would feel comfortable plopping it down on a single investment, right? Because, and that's why I would tell everyone, like, if you are going to invest in real estate or crypto or stocks or whatever, you should only invest money that you can afford to lose. Like, if you can lose that money, it shouldn't affect your lifestyle. So let's say if I buy the single family house we talked about, I put down 20 or 30,000. Let's say something awful happens to that property, it burns down, the insurance doesn't pay because it was arson or something, and I completely lose that investment. I want to make sure that it doesn't affect my life. In other words, I don't have to move out of the house I'm living in currently. I don't have to get a divorce. I don't have to start selling my cars. Like, my day-to-day living and my quality of life is protected from that. And so never invest more than what you can afford to lose. It's not worth the stress, and it's not worth the risk.
Completely true. And unfortunately, too many people don't know their numbers going in. I mean, your background is engineering, so you understand the numbers. But that's one of the things in my real estate group, you can bring a property to a call. And I was working with somebody, and I mean, the woman selling the house didn't know her numbers, and there's no way she's selling the house. And I told her, wait until February and make the same offer, $1,000 less, because you should be making your numbers that way. But like you were talking about multifamilies, one of my clients bought two separate times a mobile home park, and I didn't realize this. He put in vending machines, for candy bars, soda pop. In the laundry room, he put it, one mobile home park didn't have the laundry room. He put in the laundry room, and then for detergent, and he makes $10,000 a month in the vending machines. I'm like, I would never have thought there was so much money involved in that. So I tell people that because he opened my eyes to something else to work with. So I appreciate you taking the time, being on the call, talking to us. If there was something you were going to tell to somebody who wanted to get involved with investors or wanted to start getting family members involved, investing with them, what would be your go-to advice or your call to action?
Yeah, thanks. I would, just to put in a shameless plug, I would say, just follow me on YouTube, follow me on LinkedIn. It's my YouTube channel is called The Money Seed Podcast, and my LinkedIn channel is also called The Money Seed Podcast. I'm very easy to find, and just check out some of my material. You'll see also, I mean, Sally, you and I had an interview on the Money Seed Podcast a month or so ago, so you'll see Sally on there. So, but in all reality, I think there's never been a greater time than now to educate yourself and find opportunity. And the reason why I say that is because when I grew up, when I was a teenager, the internet, as we know it, didn't exist.
Yes.
I remember sending my very first email. I think I was 17 years old in 1995 in high school. I was like, wow, this is what an email is. That's so cool. And so as a teenager, if it was really hard to find information on anything. Today, it is just so easy to find so much information on whatever kind of investment. You want to invest in crypto, in real estate, in stocks, in options, in bonds. There's so much information on YouTube, on people's websites, on blogs that really it's just a matter of time. You just need to sit down, take an hour each day, or take 5 hours a week, or maybe your Saturday morning or whatever, and just start consuming information. Because as soon as you start consuming information, you're going to find great people to follow. You're going to find out who has good advice and who doesn't. And you'll find out the people that you like to listen to on podcasts and YouTube, and just follow them and just try to absorb everything they have to say. Because it's never been easier for the average person to get educated on all the stuff that matters. And so I would say go out there, start absorbing information. That's the number one tip I can offer people. And it's free. Right. Even you offer wonderful advice on your website, Sally, with the programs, for example, how to get out of debt and how to open up infinite banking, and some really good ideas and information on infinite banking strategies and options. And that's one example out of many. Thank you for doing that, by the way.
Oh, sure.
And yeah, I encourage everyone, just go out there and start consuming as much information as you like, and you'll find out what you're interested in, what you're not interested in, and what makes sense to you, what doesn't make sense to you, and just go from there.
And okay. I have an idea of where real estate is going to be going. What do you think for 2023? If you were going to tell people to concentrate on one thing for single family homes, would it be fix and flips? Would it be wholesale? Would it be short-term rentals? Would it be subject to what do you think is going to happen for 2023?
That's a great question. I think I'm always an optimist. So I am one of those where my very first 2 investment properties, I made a mistake with them. So they were 2 condos in Windsor, Ontario. And I was living in one. It was a 1-bedroom. And then my wife got pregnant. So I'm like, okay, let's upgrade to a 2-bedroom. And so we kept the 1-bedroom, rented it out. We moved into the 2-bedroom. And then a few years later, we moved out of there and rented that out. So we had both condos rented out. And then the 2008 financial collapse hit. And one was just always empty.
Canada had it too. That's interesting. Okay.
Especially Windsor, right? Because Windsor is so tied into the auto industry of Detroit. Okay. Windsor had the highest unemployment in Canada at one point. It was up to like 14% or 15% unemployment. Wow. Vacancy in Windsor was above 10%, right? And that's one of the reasons why I couldn't rent out my 2-bedroom, is because there was nobody. Everyone kind of left for work somewhere else because the factories just shut down overnight. And so what happened was, I ended up selling it. I ended up selling both for more or less what I got for them. But if I look at all the money I put into fixing them up, all the property tax and all the other kind of sunk costs that went into it, a lot of them were vacant for a few months here, vacant for a few months there. I had a tenant who didn't pay, blah, blah, blah. And so I just got fed up with them and I sold them. And had I kept them, today, those condos are worth about 3 times what they were worth in 2008. The economy in Windsor has really taken off. And even though those 2 condos were like cash flow even or cash flow negative, rents have also increased. So they would be cash flow positive today. They would be worth 3 times, what they were worth back then. I would be in a much better place. I'm in a great place now. Don't feel sorry for me, but I would be in an even better place. And so I tell people, even if you find a good property, right, where the property makes sense, I'm talking about today, like you asked about single family. Now it's going to be a little bit challenging to cash flow because of the high interest rates. But here's the beauty, like if the high interest rates now have pushed down property prices, right? Okay. And so you get into a property right now, even if it just barely cash flows, even if the cash flow is not a slam dunk, if it's a good deal on the house, if it's a good price and you think it's a good price for the house, buy it, because 3, 4, 5 years down the line, when when interest rates go back down to say 3%, you can refinance. And by that time, rents have also gone up because inflation pushes rents up as well. Then all of a sudden, you're going to have a property that is going to be more valuable than it is today. It's going to be cash flowing more than it is today. And so right now, you can get into a property that's like, maybe it's not perfect, but 5 years from now, it will look perfect. Just like how those 2 condos in Windsor look like a perfect property now, but they sure looked horrible back in 2008. And so I would say, yes, the economy is kind of teetering. Yes, mortgage rates are high, interest rates are high, et cetera. We don't know what inflation is going to do. But if that's scaring away other investors, then maybe this is why you should get in and just hold your nose, be patient with it for 3, 4, 5 years, and you'll thank yourself.
Well, I was telling you about my cousin Scott. He retired from Mellon Bank, and he got this information for me. Mellon Bank out of Pittsburgh is sitting on over 7,500 homes that are more than a year behind in their mortgages. Another friend who's at Bank of the Ozark or Bank of the Ozarks or Ozarks Bank, she's like, we have 6,000 homes that are more than. I really think there's a lot of people who never caught up from what happened during COVID and everything else. I'm concentrating right now to figure out how to do a short sale, and I'm concentrating figuring out if I can get subject to if I can get somebody else's interest rate. Maybe they've been there for a few years, around the 3%, 4% instead of paying 7%. But it's just. One of the reasons I moved to North Carolina, I don't know if I told you this in the podcast, they do a thing here called upset bids, only state in the country, where you go to an auction, you don't win the house, you have to wait for other things. Only one bank is going through foreclosures right now in the 5 counties I go to, SECU Credit, State Employee Credit Union. I don't see Wells Fargo. I don't see Bank of America. I don't see Fifth Third Bank. I'm like, why aren't these other banks foreclosing? I mean, not saying people are losing their homes, but it's very surprising how few banks I'm seeing going through these foreclosure process right now. So I think there's going to be some major opportunities for all investors, no matter where you are in the country then.
Absolutely. And I would also say that one of the hardest parts is just getting started, right? Is taking that first step, because it's so easy to talk yourself out of something, right? And I always tell people, you don't have to be an expert in everything. I think that's the wrong way to look at it, because some people think, oh, if I get into real estate, I have to be an expert on like all the laws around landlords and tenants. Like, no, that's why I have a property manager, right? I have a property manager on every property, right? That's their job.
Good for you.
And yeah. And I have to know how to fix everything. And I'm not an electrician. It's like, no, you don't have to know how to fix anything. You just have to basically call in a licensed electrician or call a licensed plumber and just have these individual names. And basically just try to de-risk as much as you can and just focus on what you're good at. If you're good at saving money and just investing and making a decision to invest, focus on that. If you're good at finding deals, focus on that, right? Teach yourself how to find deals, and just go with what you feel comfortable at and outsource the rest. You don't have to be an expert in everything. And the other thing, just one more thing to that is, there's always going to be some level of pain in whatever decision you make, right? Some people think, oh, well, it's really painful to take all that risk with a real estate investment. Yes, it is. But there's also a certain level of pain in having a 9-to-5 job until you're 67. There's also a certain pain involved in not being financially secure and not being able to pay for a child's college or get your teeth fixed when you're 75 or whatever you got to do. And it seems like, the safest thing for me to do is to just put my money in a savings account. And it's like, no, because the inflation is just going to eat away at it year after year. Like if you put it in a savings account, I'll guarantee you that it'll be worth less in 20 years like that. So there's a pain associated with that. And there's no way you can get around this idea that you're going to be financially secure and you're going to have all your dreams come true and you never have to take a risk and you never have to do anything uncomfortable. You have to get over that. That's just how life works.
Well, a friend of mine has been asking me about real estate, and she was with me last Saturday when we went to go look at these 2 houses are abandoned, just trying to find out their address. Well, on Tuesday, she's in a traffic jam. She looks over and she's like, that house is abandoned. That house is abandoned. She found 2 houses on her way to work because of traffic that are behind in their taxes here in North Carolina. She's like, oh my gosh, I have to find out, they're both LLCs, and she's reaching out to the investors to see. And she's just like, I didn't know there was real estate that easy to find. I'm like, when you open your eyes, it's almost anywhere. I don't want to say there's people in trouble, but these 2 different investors are 3 years behind on their property taxes, what we found out. And she's just like, if I can get them to sell, and she's never been a real estate investor until last Saturday. So it's true. There's take a chance. Just go out and walk your neighborhood. I don't know if I told you the story about, for me, I was the money on stopping an auction. My friend in, I got to figure out where in Nebraska now. Not Lincoln, Nebraska, took her dog a different way. She saw a notice on the door saying the lawn needed to be cut, and she researched the house. And the gentleman moved in with his girlfriend, and he was letting the house go, and she needed $22,000 in 4 days. And we stopped the auction. She got the house and sold it, and she made an $8,000 return on that. I mean, there's a lot of information out there for people who want to do things. So you're right. Take a chance. Just take a chance and run with it.
Absolutely. And I'm glad you brought that up with the auctions. So all the 4 properties that I own or co-own, we bought through just normal MLS, right? Like it was just a normally listed, but we have gone to auctions before, right? Like every county has an auction and you can find them on the internet. You can see exactly what properties are coming up for auction. And we actually tried to buy 2 houses through auctions and we were outbid each time, right? Like we had our maximum going into the auction. Like we're not going to bid this.
You knew your numbers. That's important. Know your numbers.
We knew our numbers and we got outbid each time. But it's a fascinating process to see that there's so many different ways to buy a house. Auction, or you can, like you say, you can stop somebody in pre-foreclosure and buy out their loan. You can there's a website called Deal Finder. I've never used them before, but I keep hearing about them. And what this company will do is, apparently what they do is you give them a zip code and you, for example, it's targeted ads. So for example, let's say I'm looking for a duplex in, I'm going to make up a city, Toledo, Ohio, this kind of price range, whatever. And they'll find all the duplexes in that zip code and whatever. And they say, okay, we found 35 houses, and they'll contact those. So they'll actually send them a postcard saying, hi, my name is Gabe. I'm an investor. I'm interested in purchasing a property. Are you interested? And they'll automatically mail those for you. And so you pay them a certain amount of money, and then you hopefully maybe out of 1 out of 50 or 1 out of every 100 postcards will actually call you back and say, yeah, you know what? I am looking to sell or something. So I hear other investors, for example, find deals that way. But there's so many different ways to find deals. Sometimes even just speaking to an agent in the city where you're investing. Find a real estate agent who works with investors and just say, hey, look, if something's coming up on the market, you hear something at the country club, or just let me know because I'm looking. And so it's amazing how many different ways there are to find deals.
Well, just even you're saying working with a real estate agent and say what hasn't sold. Well, now it's a little bit different, but when everything was so hot just a few months ago, friends of mine would go, the real estate agent would give him a list of all the houses that didn't sell in 30 days. And he's just like, wow, he'd go after them because there was something wrong. Maybe the roof needed to be done or something like that. And he got several houses that way. So there's a lot to do. But we've been talking for more than a half an hour. Anything you would like to leave before? I could talk to you for all day. So anything you'd like to finish up here?
Yeah, thanks, Sally. Thanks very much for having me on the show. I would just like to encourage everyone to, get out there and just think about your financial future, right? And just really ask yourself if your 401k and your company pension is going to do it. If you're not sure, go talk to a financial advisor. Make sure you talk to a financial advisor that charges you by the hour, so they don't have any conflicts of interest.
Somebody who's a fiduciary, because unfortunately, so many of them out there are just out there to make money on things. I hate to say that.
Correct. Yeah. And I would say that if a financial advisor offers you a free consultation, it's usually not free, right? I mean, they get paid because they sell you some kind of a mutual fund or a product and they get a commission. If you find a financial advisor who charges you by the hour and is not trying to sell you anything, that's how you know they only have your interests at heart, because then at that point, they're fiduciary, they're professional, and you're paying them for their time. Or even like a registered investment advisor, and ask them to run some financial models and simulations to see where your retirement is going to end up. Can you retire at 60?
Correct.
Can you retire at 65? Can you retire at 70? What is your income going to be like? And try to don't leave it up to chance. Like the sooner people have that picture, I think the better it's going to go for them. And it's never too early to start looking at your retirement, because I think that's we're all trying to work toward the same goal, is to just enjoy life when we're retired and not just have to worry about survival. You know what? Please check me out on the Money Seed Podcast on YouTube, the Money Seed Podcast on LinkedIn. Let me know what you think of my information. Leave some comments in there. And thanks very much, Sally, for speaking with me today.
All your links will be in the notes and everything else. Just to leave this as a tidbit, I was working as a Medicare advisor when I quit my job. Actually, I got fired, I'll be honest. And if people don't pay off their student loans, when you go to get Social Security, the Social Security office will garnish your paycheck to pay your student loans. Some of these people's loans were over 40 years old. So yes, know where you're going to be and know what you're going to do. So Gabe, thank you for your time today. I will send you the link to put out on your post too, so you can put it on to your YouTube page, things like that. I appreciate you taking the time out on a Friday afternoon to talk to me. Thank you.
It was my pleasure, Sally. Thanks very much. Have a great day.
Have a great weekend, okay?
Thank you for listening to Stop Paying Capital Gains Now. You can find out more about this at thetrustisyou.com. Make sure you hit the subscribe button so you can get this and every other episode that comes out. We have lots of great stuff coming up, so make sure you hit the subscribe button so you don't miss out. Thank you in advance for all the reviews and comments. I really do appreciate it. And I look forward to serving you next week's episode. Take care. Have a beautiful week.